Thank you for attending today's training session. The recording has begun.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mindy Thorpe, and I am a partnership specialist in the state of Idaho. I am joined with my co-facilitator, Mark Sunderland, and he is the master of all things. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how's it going, Mindy? I think that's a little bit of an overstatement, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well, I had a lot of different names for you, Mark, and I just thought master of all things, just, coined it all up. So we are very lucky to have Mark on here with us today because he has a lot of knowledge that every CRR needs to hear out there on the MQA. So thanks for joining. Really excited to be here and continue the trainings for the CRRs. Although MQA has been delayed a little bit and postponed a little bit due to our current health crisis, we are still every bit as excited for this initiative to start as we were before. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of excitement and, of course, a lot of work for all of us. But I think that not only us in partnership, but recruitment, CRRs are going to have a great time. So let's talk about it. All right. So what is the MQA initiative? It stands for Mobile Questionnaire Assistance, and its purpose is to assist with increasing response and helping the public respond to the 2020 census in areas where there has been low self-response to the Census Decennial Questionnaire. So how do we know that? How do we know about where it's low and where it's higher, the self-response? I think you all know that the portal opened up for self-response on March 12th, and we have been watching that data coming in ever since. So every day the live data is published, and it tells us where people are responding. It tells us what the national average is, and it tells us what a state's average is, and then we can break it down to the different counties in the area. And so in partnership, we are looking at that data, and that helps us determine where we want to put an MQA event. So the MQA is a supplement to the Internet self-response efforts. It is data-driven methodology in conjunction with regional knowledge. We will decide where the events go, where the MQA events go, meaning partnership decides that. And again, we are basing those locations on the live data that gets published daily from the self-response feature that we have on our website. This happens concurrently, the MQA initiative happens concurrently with the non-response follow-up. So I love the way that Mark Sunderland explains this piece of it. And tell us about the needle, Mark.
Yeah, when you think about what you do for your work with the census, what we are really trying to do is we're really all about moving the needle. So if you look at a map of let's just say the western states right now, from the census perspective, it's color-coded, and there's different colors to denote what each state's response rate is. And you'll get actually a chance to see this a little more in depth when we get to one of our trainings with Brian. He will walk through this map, so you'll get to see it more in detail. We aren't spending much time on that here, but what we are talking about is we will use a live map of where people are responding from for each of our individual states and our individual areas where we are geographically located. And what we're looking to do with the MQA program is reach into those communities and connect with groups of people that have not yet responded to the census, and then help give them a reason to respond. Help encourage them to respond, make it easier, remove barriers. And prior to COVID-19, it was a very simple, straightforward process. If I had an area, let's say I live in a small town, and there are a few areas broken up on this map that are not responding very well, then I work with, as a CRR, my local partnership specialist, and that partnership specialist has been working in the communities, as pointed out in one of our earlier trainings about the outreach efforts, and I would go find partners that are very much supportive of the census, willing to promote the census in their circles of influence. And I would ask them to say, hey, could we host a mobile questionnaire assistance event at your business location? So let's say it's a grocery store. And based on the response area, the people that go to that grocery store, all the people living around it, aren't responding very well. So we ask if we can set up a table and then stand there in the entryway for, usually a minimum of 2 hours up to 4 hours, and just reach out to people as they're passing by and ask them, hey, have you had a chance to respond to the census? If you haven't, you provide them an opportunity to respond right there with you. And if they're busy, which would be understandable, you then provide them something they can take home as a reminder that I do need to participate in the census and be counted. My household needs to be counted. And you send them on their way with that. And what we're hoping to do is after that event, you would see an increase in the responses from that area. And since the data is tracked on a daily basis, there's a live response feature where what we're looking to do is see that needle move. We want to go, if you're at 20% response right now, we want to see it come up to 30 and 40 and 50. And across our geographies, everyone has a mixed bucket of things. There's a myriad of different response rates for each county. We even get down to the census tract level, so a smaller block level. And as we do that, the whole purpose is to make an impact. We want to, by our efforts, help improve the response to the census that wouldn't have happened without our help. And that's really what it's all about. That's how we're going to move the needle in this regard. So with that, that is the purpose and the focus of the MQA program. And we are doing we're doing our best to make do with what we have right now during the health crisis. But as that lifts and society returns back to normal, we're going to focus on getting back out into the communities. And one thing we want to point out, I don't know if we have here on the slides, but we can definitely put it in, is the actual website where you can go. It's a public-facing website, so anyone can go look at it and see what the response rates are in your area. So if you're curious, you can go wander around that website. It's the 2020 response rate map. So if you went and Google that, you'd be able to find that, but we'll be able to provide that as well. And that is what we're using to base our conversation on right now, is those areas that are real-time, not responding to the census, we're reaching out to. So earlier today, I went and looked up one of my counties here in Idaho. It's a really, really small county, like 700-something people in the entire county, and they have a response rate of 7.7%. So if we're looking at this little needle on the screen here, we're down in that bottom red.
You got a long way to go.
They have got a long way to go. And the beautiful part is, if there's only 700 people in the county, and let's say the average house size is 4 people, then you don't have that long to go, but we do need to reach in and get the message out to people. So what I did was I reached out to their county clerk, their city clerk, and their school district, and they had several ideas of what they could do to promote the census. So they'll be sending text messages to the parents of children in the school system. They reached out to, within the city, they're adding the census, they're adding a census information page to the city and county websites so that people can just click on that as they're going to pay utility bills or look at the county websites for information. And it's very specifically focused on that community. I also ask them to post on their social media pages. Go to the Census Bureau's Facebook page and then share a post or two to help people really identify, oh, yeah, it is time to take the census. It looks credible. We are credible. And to come from a local voice That's where it really makes the difference. And so for me, I'm super excited for this example to watch that needle move, because at 7.7%, we have a long ways to go in percentage. But in this community, what I'm expecting to see happen is we get a few of our influential partners out there. They help share that message, and we'll see that come up pretty quickly. So we'll even provide an update here that has moved on to just give an example. But those are the key pieces of the mobile questionnaire assistance, is really making a difference. It's not just going and standing in a booth, hanging a shingle out, or just putting out, perfunctory things on your personal Facebook page, just saying, hey, the census is important, go take it. It's really looking for things that make an impact, that really do move that needle, that make a difference for the community. And the better people understand the impact to a community, the more likely they are to participate in this program, in this initiative.
Yeah, and Mark gave an example of what one event could look like, with the table there. But MQA events could look a lot of different ways. So to give you a few ideas, we could have, so some of you that are listening to this training recording, you were prior RAs, and some of you are newer. Those of you that were prior RAs and transitioned over to a CRR, you used to have a table in a location, let's say a library or different partners around a community to recruit for census jobs and census positions. Well, we could potentially use some of those same partners to have an MQA event. And it would look something very similar. You could still have a table, you'd have a tablecloth, you'd have your device, and you'd have all the information you'd need and the tools to help someone respond to the questionnaire. You're just doing something different, right? You're helping them respond instead of giving them information on census jobs. So it could look like that at a location that you're familiar with. It could be a completely different location. It could be, I spoke of libraries. Let's say there is a library that is a partner of ours in one of our low response areas, and they have dedicated 2 computers in their library just for census, for people to come in and use for census response, to have the public come in. So we could leverage and balance out an MQA event with a partner like that when they have their own dedicated computers and perhaps even their own volunteers. And we could just, also be there and be helping people respond on your device. It could be, for example, another RA in my area, she would go into the courthouse twice a week. And we're looking for different days of the week and different times, because we have to keep in mind the different traffic patterns out there. We want to make sure we are reaching everybody and meeting them where they're at. So what this particular RA did is she would be in the courthouse on Mondays from 9 to 11 a.m. and then maybe on Fridays from 2 to 4 p.m. type of thing. And she would be in a very high traffic area and recruiting for jobs, answering questions on different positions. Now what that would look like is she would be there, same table, very similar setup, but basically trying to assist somebody in responding and answering questions. Now, you will not always get somebody to respond. You might have engaged in a conversation, and you might have someone, just on the fence, and I don't know, I just don't trust the internet, and I don't really want to do that. You can also help them respond with their phone, on their phone right then and there. But you could also give them information to take, and they could go home. They could go home and do it. So part of this is also outreach, because you will be, the big goal is to get them to respond right then and there, but you will find some of those that still don't know, don't feel comfortable. They want to think about it a little bit, but you can engage in a conversation to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, give them some information to take home with them. They can call the number if they'd like, and, basically, again, we're just really helping that self-response. It's supplementing the self-response out there. So those MQA events can look a lot of different ways. We have some, depending on how our future looks with this COVID-19, we have a lot of different festivals coming up, right? A lot of fairs and places where a lot of people will gather, and a big public event. Those are going to be, places that would be a very popular place to go and to set up. So then an event can look like that as well. So we will have a lot of different ways that they'll look, and we will just kind of see how they go. There isn't a magic formula. We will see how they, what community needs what, because we want to make sure that we are meeting them and their needs, and every community is different. So let's talk about the workflow as far as what it's going to look like before we go into roles and responsibilities.
Can we jump back for just a second there, Mindy? I love what you said. It's based on what the community needs. And in this time of uncertainty, we just want to make sure that we are expected to be flexible. That is very clear, open, and out there on the front end of this. As we're trying to work with our communities, we're working with them at the level they're at. Prior to this training, we were just talking about LA County just extended their stay-at-home order through mid-May, whereas other states have, released guidance up through April. And there will be this, some of you will have things change that others won't. And as we work through this time frame, the Mobile Questionnaire Assistance Program was meant to meet the needs of the community. So whether that's during a quarantine time frame, we find creative ways to reach out, or if it's as the quarantine's lifted and there's still some factors that need to be accounted for. That's where using your best judgment and finding those ways to reach are really the important parts. We want everyone to stay safe, right? And right now the message across the country, stay home, stay safe. But as that changes, it'll just go back to stay safe, be aware. And we want to fully meet within that expectation, but also be able to help provide that encouragement at the community level where we're at.
All right. So we will go into the different roles and responsibilities a little more in detail, but let's just look at the big overview of what the workflow is going to look like just really quickly. So get kind of this in your mind, how it will look, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. The partnership specialist enters the MQA information into CRM, which is our database, right? It's how we track everything. And not everybody, the CRRs will not have access to the CRM. And that's when we talk about the OOS and the clerks and the RMs later on, because they will have access into CRM. But basically, the partnership specialist has already done all the backstory, right? All the information, the data, looked at the data and talked to our coordinator, and we've figured out what we need to do and where we need to go for this next, let's say, I'm not sure how the timing is going to look yet. Well, that's still to be determined, but, we could get a certain census tracts that we need to have an MQA in. So we will leverage our partners, and we will find that location, and we will enter it into CRM. Each week, the partnership specialists and the different leads, MQA leads for the states, will be going over this information with the RMs and the OOS, and we review all the different MQA information and events that we've put together from that live data, and that helps us determine where we're going to need to place the CRRs. Just to give you a little preface on this whole training, there are still a lot of moving parts to those details that I just explained. We will, every ACO may, they might do things a little bit differently. So depending on your ACO and how the RM is, coordinating with the clerks, we're just not sure how your particular ACO will work as far as getting the different information to you. But in the big picture, this is probably what's going to happen, what we're going to discuss today. But there will be some moving parts within your ACO, and the ACOs can do things in their, whatever needs work best for them. But basically, we're going through all the different information. We're deciding where those MQA events are going to be, and we're going to pull all that information to figure out where we need to put a CRR for an event. The partnership specialist will confirm that event with the partner and whatever location it is, and we will be in touch with the OOS and the clerks and the RM and make sure that everything is set, ready to go. The OOS or clerks, again, that's for the ACO to kind of figure out how they want to do it, will assign the CRRs to work an MQA event. And I'm sure many of you are wondering right now where you will be assigned, what areas, what counties, what partnership specialist. Those are all still to be determined, and we will have more clarity as we get this initiative back moving forward. The CRRs will report to a partner site, and they will be the host. They will host the MQA event, and the partnership specialist will report as needed. When we first start this initiative, we are anticipating that the partnership specialist will be at, we're going to all try to be at those firsts, all the firsts around the area, right? Because this is going to be new for everybody. We want to make sure it's running smoothly. We want to make sure that, everything, the CRRs have everything that they need, and they're, if you have any questions. So you will not be just sent out there to the wolves. You will not go out, in the dark and unprepared. We will make sure you're prepared. We'll make sure you have everything you need, and we are hoping to be at as many as possible. After the MQA event ends, the CRR does complete a post-event survey, and we will talk about those emails in the detail in just a little bit. I have some screen grabs of what those look like. And those, that post-event survey, that is designed to really, let's look at it. Let's say, okay, was it a success? Was it not? What could we change for next time? Maybe there are a lot of nuances that we didn't think about and we should think about again. Now, remember, we try to keep everybody in their own communities, right? But there will be times that a CRR will have to travel. But we know that, you are all out there in your communities, and you might know different things about a community than we know. So, those are examples of, the feedback we'd like to see. And, let's say the internet connectivity wasn't good. It could be something like that. We'd want to know that for future, because if something really didn't work in a location, we probably would not want to go back out to that location or see if we can fix it and figure out how to make it better later. But
one thing I want to jump in real quick here, Mindy, for a second, is sometimes you have a great location, but the timing was poor, or the communication ahead of time was not what it could have been. Meaning, sometimes if you're going to go to a grocery store, I don't think it matters if you tell the grocery store in advance, hey, we're coming this day, this time, because whoever's going to be shopping is the people that are going to show up there. That's how grocery stores work, right? But if you're going to a library or somewhere else where you're trying to structure it around, let's say there's a massive story time, or there's a community awareness fair at one of the community centers, and you're timing it with that. Sometimes your timing is all that you need to do. Is you just need to find a time when people are going to be coming through there. And others, if it's this is a once this month type of thing at like the Senior Citizen Center, then you would want to communicate that in advance. The partner would be able to tell the people that come to that facility, hey, this day, this time, we got this great opportunity coming. And so sometimes that's what we're looking for in this post event survey is, did we have a good location? Did we have, was there a lot of people there? Did they know about it in advance, or was it just they were just there and saw it that time? And so those are some of the factors that you want to be considerate of is how can we make it better? We want to improve every single time. And that's the hope is once you've had boots on the ground at that event, you can provide a really good perspective so that we can make it better for the next time.
Right. Let's say the event only had, you only really talked to 2 people. So there could be a lot of reasons for that, right? The traffic flow wasn't good. Maybe we didn't have enough advertising. So, just like Mark said, there's a lot of different reasons we want to get that feedback and learn from it and make it successful, for the next one. All right, so let's see. Where are we now? Let's talk about partnership specialists. Mark, do you want to take this one? I'll just pull all the highlights up and.
Perfect. Let's do it. So.
All right.
We're gonna dive here. The partnership specialist is, and most of you have met your partnership specialist. I'm sure there's some of you that haven't, but the partnership specialists have been out in the field for the most part, meeting with and speaking with partners, and so they're the ones responsible to identify the tracks where a mobile questionnaire assistance event is needed, and that's, like we said, based on that live data. And then we go in and we leverage our relationships with those partners to schedule a location or multiple locations. If we have a track that's got 7%, like we were saying earlier, then a mobile questionnaire event, you want more than one in that location because you've got a little bit of ways to go. National average on responses right now is about 43%, and so that one county we mentioned earlier is pretty far off. So we're going to want to have multiple events, multiple locations to try to find that. And so what the partnership specialist will do is they'll identify these in advance, and then the partnership specialists enter that information into our database, to the CRM, and then that allows it to have the progress tracked on who was assigned to attend, and then that also flags who is going to receive these follow-up emails on the back end. And so partnership specialists, as often as they can, would participate in MQA events, and depending on where they're located and how many CRRs are working in that area will determine when they can attend those events. But they will participate in events and are available as needed as well. And then we also have materials, promotional items that we're giving out at these events. And so the partnership specialists have been given a ton of materials. I mean, they shipped basically a truckload of stuff to my house one day, and it weighed several hundred pounds. I'm not even joking. And if I'm not mistaken, that went to every partnership specialist. Mindy, did you get the truckload
I'm
too?
over here laughing because, one time I had so many I had to open my garage door and let the UPS guy just put everything in there. So Mark's not exaggerating there.
No, and it's literally thousands of handouts and flyers and materials. When ours showed up, my son went out, and my oldest son's 12, and he said, "Dad, half of the boxes are too big for me to pick up." And he's not a small kid, but they were just under 40-pound boxes. So we've got materials. You should be able to connect with your partnership specialist, and they should be able to provide you with ample materials. And as well as we can get, there are promotional items that we can get as well. And so that connection there, that's how you get those promotional materials and that outreach material. One thing you want to have is something to hand people that are interested. They want a little more information. We've got more printed information for them. So that's something you can expect as well. And then one thing that I can't underpine this enough, I have done a lot of marketing in my life, and the partnership specialist is going to encourage and ask that the MQA host, the person that's hosting the event, at the locality, we'll publicize. If we're at a senior citizen center, then we want to have posts on the senior citizen center's Facebook page. We want a flyer on the door promoting it a week in advance so that people that come only once a week could see that, know it's coming, and then have that opportunity to participate. And that goes for anywhere. If your partner's at a local college, same thing. Send out an email blast to the students. Say, hey, this day, this time, we've got this happening. At the local library system, I know community pages, all different ways to communicate. You want that out there in advance so that there's greater awareness, and those people that want that assistance will show up. And it makes it much more effective, too. And when we go back to moving the needle, if I just show up at an event and all I did was I called, asked if they would let me borrow their space, they said yes, and then we show up on that day and that time, we're going to be very ineffective in trying to move the needle compared to what we could have done. And so that's where the publicizing and just getting that information out in advance really helps hit the target. If we're picking these locations inside of harder to count or low response tracks, then we are specifically trying to get that group of people to participate. Those that aren't participating, we want to invite to participate, and that's how it's engineered. Not necessarily exact science, but geographically much more concise. And then as things happen and problems arise, then the partnership specialist would elevate the concerns to their any concerns, I guess, stemming from ACOs, would take that through their team lead. That wouldn't be something that they'd be addressing directly, but that they would elevate through their team lead within their state or within their area, however they're set up. So that's an overview of what the partnership specialist part is in all of this. And Mindy, do you want to talk to the census response representatives, our CRRs, and review theirs?
Sure. Yeah. So just one more thing on partnership specialists and just kind of the communications is if you are a prior RA, you will remember this, and those of you that are new coming on board, you do have regular communications and, you know, either in-person meetings or phone meetings with your partnership specialist. So there's a really great relationship, and the communication is very good, and I think you get to know your partnership specialist pretty well. Now, a few of you will be working with several different partnership specialists. You might not be assigned to just one. So, you know, you will just, you know, make sure you're in communication all the time, and you will most likely have regular meetings, you know, weekly meetings. That is all, again, a little bit to be determined, and every team does things a little bit differently. But that's the hope, is that, you know, you will be chatting with your team, your partnership specialist, and you'll know your expectations of one another and how it will look. And if you're going to a location yourself that you are familiar with, you know, you might know how or who to reach out to get more publicity and get it out there, maybe social media platforms to make sure that everybody in the community knows, hey, you know, we're going to be out at this location on this date at this time, you know, join me. Let me help you complete the census. So keep that in mind, that you'll have regular communications. So let's talk about CRRs and what you're going to be doing. So that's you. So exciting. You are responsible for staffing the MQAs. So you are primarily the ones that will be there the majority of the time. Again, partnership specialists will attend as needed. And it really depends. It's very situational at some of these MQA events, because we don't know, you know, what the needs are going to be until it is arranged and it's confirmed. And those kind of nuances we will just deal with as it comes. And if it's an event where, you know, you're expecting a large crowd, a lot of people, you know, we don't want you to be alone. So we'll either try to staff another CRR with you or a partnership specialist. You know, it will just be decided as it happens, basically. What you are doing, again, You are there to encourage members of the public to go online and complete the census questionnaire. So you will have, your device. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And but that's the main reason you're there, and to field questions with regard to how they can respond. So they may not, again, we have a lot of people, a lot of in the public that don't feel comfortable with sharing their information on the internet. So far, the live data coming in has been fantastic, and a huge percentage of the overall self-response has been by the internet, so that's encouraging so far, but we will get those that say, no way, I'm not going to put my information over the internet. So, okay, that's all right. Again, we're here to meet them where they're at. They can use the phone, and they could even complete the paper questionnaire. You may have people bring you their paper questionnaire to an MQA event, and that's okay too. And they might have some questions. You cannot take it from them and send it in, but if they have some questions, you could answer them, maybe field some questions, and the paper form and the other different areas around the paper and phone response are covered in other trainings throughout this series. So again, answer any questions. We are hoping that you will have some informational flyers that you could also hand out. We have a lot of different things. I know many of you are familiar with the Census 101. It's a nice nutshell of infographics and just some really easy to understand data, and those are helpful just to have at any time to hand out to the public. But you are there having some conversations and explaining the importance of it. You will use language skills to encourage them to respond as well. And every CRR will have a language ID form. It's a card, and you will have one for different languages. And there's two different forms. I've seen both of them. One of them is a little more, it's a little smaller, and it's not as robust as the other, but there's a bigger one that is a big 3 kind of trifold looking document, and it has the same instructions in all the different languages. And I think that every CRR should be getting one of those. If not, you will be getting the smaller, the more the brief one, and but you will be trained on the different language skills, and you will have the materials you need to help them complete the questionnaire if they do not speak English or Spanish. You will help set up and break down the event. You might be completely on your own. It just depends on where you're at. In the details of the email that you will get sent to you when you have been assigned an event, we will go over that here in a little bit in detail. It will have all the details. For example, table will be provided but no chair, or chair and no table, or nothing is provided, or let's say it's outside and they say could be a hot day or maybe a rainy day, and maybe a pop-up tent would be recommended. There will be a lot of different details in that email that comes to you, so you will know what to expect. But you are expected to set up the event and break down the event, and you're also expected to be there 30 minutes prior to the event starting. We would like the events to be a minimum of 2 hours and a maximum of 4 hours. But again, that is subject to the situation where it is, let's say it's outdoors and it starts raining, a lot of people might close up shop and leave. There could be a lot of different scenarios and why the hours could fluctuate. Again, you will complete a post-event survey with the successes and challenges and suggestions that you might have. And ultimately, you're there to be creative and remove barriers to make the MQA event a success. You do report as a CRR to the MQA RM. And so, you know, you will do a little bit of a balancing act between communications, between partnership and the ACO. But you do report to the RM.
Hey, we have a question that's come in.
I know.
I
just saw that. Go ahead, Mark.
So the first question is, do we have CRR representatives for most of the languages?
Oh, that's a great question.
That is a great question. It's harder to answer than not because we're still hiring CRRs.
Unfortunately, the big answer, I believe, is no. We probably don't have CRRs in every language we're going to need, which is why we have the language guides. But we are definitely working on hiring the language speaker for that community. You know, there are a lot of different reports coming in what areas around the country we need different speakers. And, you know, I know that is happening. I mean, do you know more on that, Mark, as far as hiring the different speakers, language speakers?
I know that the focus is on hiring those speaking one of the 13 supported languages. But along the way, last I heard, we had people speaking over 40 languages across partnership and CRRs in our region.
Wow!
And the language the language helps that we have are in 59 languages. So we're 2/3, if not more, there on being able to help, and we try to, as best we can, and people applying and available at the time, try to consider, language is one of the considerations for hiring, but there's no guarantee, but we try to do our best in that regard. So it's not like we're hiring just one specific language. We're always mindful of the language needs within an area and trying to hire accordingly. Right. But it really comes down to your application pool. If no one's speaking another language that you would like is available, that makes it a little more difficult, right? So,
sure.
But we do have some that are hired specifically for a language in areas where in California, I know we have several that are hired that way, just to serve specific larger communities within their area.
All right. So I mentioned the emails that get generated when you have been assigned an MQA event. This is what the email looks like. So the first thing I want you to notice is the top, right? It says you're invited to MQA. This is just an example of an area that I support, but Moscow is the city, the specific track number, the low response score, so LRS is a low response score, and the date. This is called a naming convention, and you will see the subject line will always have that, because that is how we track the different MQA locations and the targeted track that we are trying to hit, and again, depending on that live data coming in. So you will get used to that. That is just a naming convention, and again, it's always going to be exactly what you're reading: the MQA, the city, the track number, the low response score, and then the date. If you look at the body of the email, it will say, dear CRR, you've been scheduled to work at, and again, it's going to be that naming convention, and it will show you the date and the time. So in this case, it was April 1st from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. This is just an example, but the description, event description, that will always be here in there as well. Now, since we did this screen grab for this training purpose, we have decided on a template, an event description template that will always have the same information for you. So you will have everything you need, and it is definitely longer than what I have in this event description here. This is just as an example for training purposes, but you will have the different information about those little things that we talked about. You will need to bring a chair. It's indoors or outdoors. It will have your partnership specialist on there as well under that event description area, because those of you that are supporting several different partnership specialists, you will need to know that in your email, because then you will know who to contact if you have questions or a problem when you're at that event. So the description will be much more detailed than what is on this example, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the email will look like when you get it. It'll have the event address, the organization, the event organization. That means who is hosting that MQA event. In this case, it was the Latah County Library District, and the contact there at the library district was Lisa Egan. So you know who you're going to ask for once you arrive to set up the MQA event. That will be the first email you get when it's first scheduled. You will also get a second email, and I want to say that this email comes out about 7 days prior to the event as a reminder. Can't quote me on that. I really don't remember exactly when this came through, because I was just doing a lot of testing for training purposes. But you do get a second reminder email, and again, it tells you the same things. And please contact the ACO if you have any questions about your role at this event. Again, you will probably and may have had some communications with your partnership specialist by this time. It will just depend on that relationship, but you shouldn't, it shouldn't be a surprise that you have been assigned to work one of the events, because again, you should have at least 2 emails prior to it happening. All right, so here's some components. Do you want to take this one, Mark, and I'll hit the buttons for you?
Fantastic. Let's do it. So,
all right.
I will have to say I was incredibly excited when I saw this first one. So ACOs will be sent to a promotional item. So you get water bottles, pens, my personal favorite, temporary tattoos. I mean, could you get any better than that?
Yeah,
I am
who doesn't
envisioning
like a temporary tattoo?
I know. I'm envisioning if I can swing it, I want 20 temporary tattoos. I want like Census 2020 sleeves for that first MQA event, just so I can be like looking the part, But I don't know if they'll let me do it, but I'll try. I'll attempt it.
And to
so
my
we
knowledge, we don't
swag,
have it. Oh, sorry to interrupt you there,
Mark.
Oh, go for it. The most recent thing I heard, especially this happened even before the COVID-19, is that we still did not have a date on those promotional items, but those promotional items should be sent. They're sent to the ACO, and the ACO will send them to the CRRs. We just don't know the dates on that, and especially now. So sorry to interrupt you on that.
No, that's fantastic. So you guys get access directly to swag. So whoever's my CRRs, I'm going to be hitting you up for some temporary tattoos. Just know right now. And then after that, there is also not just swag, but you get a temporary pop-up banner. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, that's what this is, the thing that says Shape Your Future, Start Here, that teal one. And I am happy to announce that one has arrived at my own house. I have one at my house now, and I left it set up in my office for like a week until my kids started using it to like throw foam balls at, and I had to take it down. I'm like, no.
Target practice.
Not what this is for. They were really excited, but they're actually fabric. They're really pretty looking and very durable.
Oh, I haven't opened mine yet.
It's actually a printed fabric. Yeah, and they're not too hard to put it together. They do have instructions that are just pictures, just so you know. And it has its own carrying case. So the whole thing is like this bright silver metal, and it's got some sticks that you screw together, and you pull the thing out of it's basically everything sits on the floor. It's floor weighted, and you pull it up, and then you post the little stick in the top of it, and it holds it up. And so they're really cool, very official looking. That is definitely going to help people
Makes
find
me want to
you
open mine up.
Yeah, you should. You totally should.
All right.
And
okay.
so before your next one of these, you need to open it up so you can say you've done it.
Okay.
And you will also be issued, from what I understand, 2 census polo shirts, and they are your uniform for that day. So to look official, you'll have this pop-up display. You will have a census branded polo shirt, and that is required for you, and it really just helps kind of people like identify you. And you'll obviously be wearing your badge and other things that way. But you want to make sure that you personally arrive at least 30 minutes before an MQA starts. And the reason you do that is, how many of you have ever gone somewhere that someone else has set up and they said, oh, yeah, Jim will meet you there, 15 minutes beforehand, and you show up and there's not a soul. Place is locked. You don't have a contact phone number, and you're just kind of you're just kind of left out there. Or when someone's like, oh, yeah, Sarah's in charge of this whole thing, and she's always in her office. You can always get a hold of Sarah. And all of a sudden, it's the day, the time of, and no one. You got nothing.
No Sarah.
So you want enough time in advance to make sure you can scope it out, make sure everything's on the level for what you want to achieve, which is get set up, make sure that everyone, you've had a chance to meet the people that are there at the facility. You want to be personable that way. You don't just want to come walking in and, all right, I'm here. I'm God's gift to mankind. All of a sudden, you're the guest. They are hosting this on our behalf, so the Census Bureau did not have to pay for a venue to do this. That's part of the partnership program. Is goodwill is what it is built on. So please, please, please keep that goodwill intact. That is a very important part of this deal. And then as well, you want to make sure that you have the phone numbers for your RM and your MQA leads. So if there's any questions or concerns, you've got one point of contact you can reach out to there. One piece is communicate early, communicate often. If you have concerns with things, in the day of text messaging, it's so nice when you have someone's information in your phone to just shoot off a quick text message. Hey, I'm here. I can't find anyone. Or, hey, this thing is going fantastic. Or just little quick snippets like that help so that we know what's going on. And it just helps kind of encourage more communication. As it goes, the first couple MQA events you do, communicate about it. Good stuff, bad stuff, whatever's going on. Just keep each other informed so that everyone knows how things went. And so there's no real surprises, right? The worst thing you could do is you could have a horrible event and you don't tell anyone about it, and then you just fester. My goodness, that is not going to help anyone, and it's not going to help you to be able to have a better experience for the next time. If things go wrong, we want to correct them. We want to move past that and get into the good stuff. So I have been in situations where the point of contact for the Census Bureau from a partner was someone who had a bad experience. And let me just tell you from personal experience, that is not where you want to be. It seemed like she was coming after me with a cattle brand every time I talked to her. It was just not a pleasant experience, and she had one bad experience, and for the last 10 years, she has just festered on that. So don't do that. Don't be that person. Communicate about it. Let's help take care of it, make sure it gets taken care of, resolve it, move on. And then, when you get there, prior to showing up, you will have received one of those emails like Mindy just showed. It will have the contact name, the contact phone number, and it should have the partnership specialist who set it all up in the first place. You want that information. That is critical information to be able to show up to a site, because the partnership specialist is the person that has that relationship. They're the ones that met with these people and have worked with them and were the ones to get the venue scheduled. So you want to have those key pieces. So when they say, hey, so who are you and what are you here for? Yeah, I'm with the Census Bureau. Oh, I don't know anything about it. Isn't it nice to say, actually, it looks like Jan is the person that communicated, Jan's my point of contact here with you guys, and it looks like Philip is the one that set it up originally. Do you know Jan? Oh, yeah, I know Jan. Great. Is Jan around? no, it's her day off, but she's, we can make a call if we need anything. Or if Jan said it's okay, great, you come on in, we'll hook you up. So having those key pieces of information of those points of contact really help grease the wheels and make things run a lot smoother in the moment. Especially the larger the organization you're working with, the more people to just kind of, you want to have that one point of contact for solidarity. And then the CRRs can assist with the questionnaire. That's part of the census response representative. You're helping people respond, and so that's the goal. But you just want to be mindful that you cannot interpret the question. So like when they say, it says how many people live in your household or whatever, they're like, well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean you get to then elaborate on that. It means you say, well, what does it mean to you? What do you think it means? And you let them answer that question to help to help navigate that portion. And same thing, what is the gender of this individual living in your household? What's your race or ethnicity? Don't go through and try to pull out a textbook and describe what that is. You say, well, what do you think it means? And a lot of times what they think it means is you're right, great, go with that, perfect. Put that down. That's really letting them drive it. You don't want to bias the way they respond. You let them respond on how they interpret it. And so we do want to put out there, under no circumstance can a partnership specialist allow the public to use a Census Bureau issued laptop. Now, this is specific to partnership specialists, just so you're aware. So I have a computer. I'm using it right now, and it has, a census logo or whatever on it. But that is specific to partnership specialists. It was not designed to allow for massive amounts of personal information to be received for a census response. And so even though partnership specialists have, a phone and a laptop issued by the Census Bureau, those were not actually intended to be touched by the public. Because of what's saved on them, it makes it so that those are not intended to go out there and be used. So we can't have partnership specialists, offering up their laptops or phones to be able to do it. That's why CRRs are given iPads. The iPad is actually prepped specifically for getting multiple people's response. And they've actually locked them down so tightly that partly why you're listening to this as a recorded video as opposed to a live presentation or whatnot is because there were a lot of security pieces that are protected on an iPad, and that means a lot of things are not able to be used, but they were designed for one purpose, is to allow you to help people respond. That's the whole purpose. And partnership specialists, they do have technology, but that was not the purpose of that technology. It was actually to facilitate other things, handling of emails and information processing, stuff like that. And so we're not allowed to have partnership specialists just plop their stuff down and say, hey, we got another laptop here, got a phone, who wants to take it and use it? So we to overcome that in the events, when you're hosting an MQA, what do? How do you manage that? Well, first and foremost, you've got the iPad that you're presented with. Some of the venues for MQA events will have technology. If you're at a library or a school district where they've got computer labs, part of why those events would be scheduled there is to allow more people to respond, and it helps to do that. We also have any person responding to the census can use their own device. So if you're doing an MQA event out in the community and people are saying, okay, I want to take the census, you say, even if you're having problems technologically, you say, hey, do you have a smartphone on you? Great, let's pull that out and let me show you how to respond. And you can walk them through the screens of how to respond there as well. And then the Census Bureau website's optimized so it recognizes mobile, so it does the mobile browser and, makes it a lot easier to manage on the smartphone. So that's what we would suggest there. So now we've gone over that piece. Now we have anything to add to that, Mindy, before we move on?
Yeah, just, if you do have a partnership specialist attending an MQA event with you, just, be mindful, and not upset with us that we cannot just break out our laptop and help. Let's say you have a long line of people. It's just, it's against the law for us to do that. We cannot do that. So please keep that in mind. But we could assist you, in other ways. We can help the crowd control. We could help people respond on their cell phones if they're there, field questions. So just want to really emphasize that we're not trying to help you. It's just that we can't. And, we are all sworn census employees protecting Title 13. We just have to really make sure that we are honoring that. And again, in the assistance of helping them respond, Mark mentioned about interpreting our own answers. So we just can't do that. We really need to type in verbatim what someone says to us. And sometimes a question could be, a yes or no answer. And, they might say, well, and give you this long answer. And, it's not up to you to interpret what that means. So just keep that in mind. And the only other thing I wanted to add to that is, Mark did mention about our partners. We've worked very, very hard to, for a very long time, some of us have been doing this for over a year and a half and worked very hard to establish relationships with these partners out in the community. And, we are going to ask that you honor that and, treat them with all the utmost professionalism and respect, because we've worked very hard to maintain those relationships and get those relationships. So that's about it that I wanted to add on there. As far as Mark mentioned the devices, right, that you'll have. Some of you already have them, and some of you will be getting them. And you will be issued a Census Bureau iPad, and it is very limited on what you can and cannot do. It does have their own cellular data on it, but you also want to kind of, make sure that, there's a backup plan if if you're worried about where you're at. There are a lot of rural communities, right? And so we want to make sure that we have backup plans in case, if you're foreseeing that you're in a rural area and you're like, well, gosh, I don't know about the connectivity in that area, ask some questions about that. But, Mark, a lot more about these iPads, being that the technical difficulties we ran into with just these trainings that we're on right now, trying to get them live. What would you like to add about their devices that the RAs and CRRs have?
One thing I would like to say is they function really well in a few things, and being able to access the internet through your Safari web browser and being able to get to the census webpage, they do fine at. I've actually heard very few problems with that. So they function in a limited capacity. That's the focus of them. They were intended so you guys can have communication from the Census Bureau on your email and to be able to facilitate mobile questionnaire assistance. The mobile part being you're holding it, right? And that we're moving around. We're not just at the same place every day. And so that's the one part about that is just because you're holding an iPad does not necessarily mean it will perform as intended. The cellular data is, in my mind, the biggest piece that you want to check. When you get there to the venue, you want to wander around and make sure you have good coverage on your iPad. And it might sound funny, but there are going to be some places you're at where you have to stand in like a certain place to get good coverage to be able to do the census. We have a Walmart here in town, and when I go shopping, I know that when I'm in the food section, I do not have data on my phone. I just don't. It's the weirdest thing. There's this block of rows. I know after row 13, aisle 13, I can all the way back to the dairy case. I cannot use my phone, but anywhere else in the store, I can. And that's just one of those little unique nuances. So you want to be aware of that for your iPads at these venues when you're going to an MQA event. and then have a backup plan. Is there wireless at that facility? Let's say you're at a business in town where there's a bunch of people coming through. Do they have Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi that you could connect to as a backup? Or is there free Wi-Fi that people that you're assisting could connect to on their own personal device? Right. So we have that's where being aware of those kind of technical pieces is really, really important, just to make sure, you show up, you've got full bars, not a big consideration. You're not too worried about that. You show up and you've got like 1 bar or 2 bars. You might want to go pull up the website, make sure that it's going to load the pages as you need it, just to be able to help in that regard. So from the technology
we have a
standpoint,
question. Sorry, you're talking about technology, Mark, and maybe you can answer this question that came in. Just wondering about the public, if they can be confident using the iPads to take the census, about its security. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I really can. So the iPads, let's just say the iPad that a CRR is given is not a standard iPad. You cannot go buy this iPad from a store and just pull it out of the box and that's the equivalent of what you have. No. I've actually gone the rounds with a lot of our IT group because they're called locked down. We have our IT administrators go and literally shut off all of the background noise that happens on a iPad that you're not aware of. You'd probably very rarely see any of that happen on your personal device, but it's happening where apps are sending and receiving information and things like that. Our teams have gone through and shut that down to the extent that we had to get creative just to find out what way we can get you this training. That's where my experience comes from, is we found a whole bunch of no's along the way to get to this training because of security settings, that because of one reason or another you couldn't download something onto it. And so there's been a meticulous effort to secure the data that is on these iPads. And then the iPads themselves, when you are on that website to help people respond to the census, if someone's holding their iPad in your hand, that's an encrypted website, meaning they hit send and it locks it in a box and then sends it into outer space to go back to our servers, which will then be the only other place it could be unboxed. And so all of your responses are encrypted. When it's going from our iPads, there is very little that you can do on those iPads because of the security settings, to make sure that there's nothing that would disrupt you being able to respond to the census, or people in the public being able to use it to respond to the census. So they have gone to great lengths, and on the opposite side, I have gone to great lengths to try to figure out just how to get certain things to work, and they're very well protected in that regard. So that is one of the pieces that you could assure someone, yes, these are definitely secure iPads set up for this operation, for our mobile questionnaire assistance, and they've been prepared specifically for that.
Awesome. I told you out in listening land that Mark was the master of all things, and now you see why, right? So let's move on to a few of the roles and responsibilities. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker, just because some of this might be the weeds for you all. You really don't know, need to know how the sausage is made. You just kind of want to do your job and all that. But I want to at least you to know who to contact and who to talk to. And the other, caveat here is that every ACO does things a little bit differently. So we can't say that this is dictated in how every ACO will do it. This is the big picture of how it will most likely be done, but this could change because these trainings are going out through a lot of different states right now, so we can't assume your ACO will be doing it a certain way. But the RM, there is a recruiting manager that is dedicated to MQA, and that RM works with the partnership specialists within their territory or state to ensure that the initial locations for the sites are identified, they're located, and in the appropriate geographic areas according to that live data that we discussed earlier. And, that what is targeted, what areas are lower in response, and what census tracts are we going to target. The RM also works with the partnership specialists to ensure that the language requirements for the CRRs are identified before the actual MQA event begins. So again, that would be detailed information in the event description. And let's say, gosh, Mark, down by you, there's a pretty heavy Korean community, and if I remember right, and so that in that case, we would, most likely, depending on what who the partner is, they would want, a Korean speaker. Wouldn't you say there's a certain couple areas down there that really they couldn't probably get through the decennial questionnaire if they didn't have a translator there in some of those areas down there? That's just an example I'm giving.
Yeah, no, that's completely right. You'd have, so we've talked a lot about the Cinco de Mayo events. And when you pull a huge event together, you're going to get a lot of people. You want to be able to meet the needs of those. And so, if we have a Korean community that's kind of got a pocket in this area, it'd be great if we have a Korean speaker on the CRR team, to definitely have them there. Or Spanish speakers. I know that's a very common one. But, if you're in, you're in downtown Los Angeles, depending on what area you're in, you may have 2 or 3 different languages that you'd list there that you're going to be serving people from these language-speaking communities. And that's a consideration for the MQAs, is what is the primary language that you're targeting with this MQA? And so if I were, in your example, if I'm with one of the partners that serves the Korean community, definitely I'm going to need someone that's speaking Korean to be able to help facilitate that, or Spanish, or whatever the language is. And the same thing goes for all MQAs, where we actually have to put what's the primary language being served during this event. And you can list more than one in those pieces in the database.
Yeah.
So.
And that's where it would be, because, like this example that Mark and I are kind of talking about, basically if there's an MQA event in certain areas without that specific language speaker, then it's not going to be successful, right? So we just need to be very mindful, and that RM is going to be the main person making sure that we have that the right person there to meet those language requirements for that particular event. The RM may or may not train, but they will supervise the OOS, the Office Operations Supervisor, and the recruiting assistants. Well, I guess we're kind of doing the recruiting assistant. We're kind of training you all right now, right? It's a little untraditional. Whoops, what happened there? It's changed. The look has changed a little bit due to the circumstances, but the RM will help with the office staff in there, the clerks and the OOS, and they also will be looking at the different reports on the MQA sites and the information to use it to assign the different CRRs the work. We talked about that a little earlier on some earlier slides. So let's talk about that OOS for a minute. We're going to go through this a little bit quicker just because I'm not really sure how this will look in your ACO, but the OOS will work side by side with the RM and the clerks. Basically, that OOS is the RM's assistant, right? I mean, I think that's how they've worked in the past, and they're kind of their right-hand person helping them with the different recruitment needs out there. They will ensure that adequate supplies are sent to the CRR. So in most cases, again, this might be different. You'll get to know in your own ACO, but in most cases, that OOS will be the person that you will talk to. Let's say you need more supplies for something, and you're going to a specific event, that might have different needs than your last one. You want to make sure that you could get the supplies from that OOS. That OOS also provides the RM and the partnership specialist with the general feedback about any issues as well, because they're the ones that will be assisting with the CRM piece, that database I mentioned earlier. They will be the ones that will be working in that database with the partnership specialist. So, they will be the ones that would be able to report any operational issues or feedback depending on what's happening with that particular event and what's happening with the event in the system as well. So that last paragraph there, the last bullet point just talks about, again, CRM and making sure that the CRRs are emailed the information about their assignment. And again, I showed you an example of that email that will be automatically generated from CRM and sent to you as a CRR when you are assigned to work a specific event. So let's see. Why is my thing? There we go. This here is another email you will get after the event is over. So you've had this great event, the event was successful, and you want to talk about it and you want to report back. This is that post-event survey that we talked about. This is the event that you will get, the email invite you will get to respond to that survey. So as you can see, you're going to, have that same naming convention in there, and it will just ask you to click where it says here, and the next screen is going to show you what you will see. So again, this is the post-event survey invite. This will also be emailed to you just like your MQA event assignment was emailed to you. There we go. Okay, so this is the first screen that you get when you are going to complete the survey now. First question it's going to ask you, did you attend the event? Yes or no? So let's say it got canceled at the last minute, right? Then in that case, you would hit no and hit submit. If you did attend the event, you're going to click yes, and then you're going to hit submit, and then you're going to get this next screen right here. All along every screen, it still shows you that naming convention, and it asks you, I don't know if this is too small to see, but it does the first question is, did you attend the MQA event? It asks you that again. How many 2020 census questionnaires were completed by respondents you interacted with during the event? And then you would just put a numerical value in there. Question 3, in addition to the respondents who completed the questionnaires, how many other persons did you interact with to answer questions or provide other 2020 census-related assistance to? So that's where you would put information in. Remember, I gave the example, you might have someone that just doesn't feel real confident about the internet for some reason, and they just had a lot more questions, but they took some information from you and they walked away. You'd want to count that person because that is someone that you actually spoke with. You delivered some, outreach in a certain capacity to that person, and let's say, it's somebody about wanting information about responding on the telephone, or maybe they came in and brought their paper questionnaire to you and they just said, I've got a couple of questions on this, and you fielded some questions on that. You want to make sure you're capturing all that information, and that is where you would put that information right there on the other people that you did interact with and answered questions. And again, perhaps you had a stack of different flyers that you got from your partnership specialist. Let's say it was that Census 101 that I mentioned earlier, or there are hundreds of different flyers you could have, but depending on what your location is and the community and population you're serving at that moment. So let's say they took something and they walked away, you would still count them in there. The last question, what type of assistance did you provide? And then you could check all that apply if you just answered questions about it. You provided guidance about how to get assistance in languages other than English. You referred a respondent to the telephone center, referred respondent to another resource for answers to questions or other. And you could check all of them if you did do that and did supply that information. This is your last screen on the post-event survey. It just simply says, thank you for submitting the MQA questionnaires, and you want to make sure that you do get this final screen because the information you are providing is really important to the future of different MQA events, and that also is, ensuring that you did work that event, and you want to make sure that you're accountable, that you were there, and you capture that information. All right, what do we have next? Our final thoughts, Mark, questions and nuances. But first, looks like we got a question here. How will we keep track of how many people we interact with? What I would probably do on that, maybe Mark has a different answer, I'm sure he will, but I would probably have a little tally, and I would just tally the different people I'm talking to, or if I handed out a flyer or if I answered questions, I'd probably just be tallying it somehow so I can have an idea on how many people that I interacted with. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Mark?
No, that's what I do. I just have a little pad of paper. I'm thinking like sticky notes. You just have a sticky note, you put it on the table, and as you work with people, you just come back and just do a little mark on that sticky note. So it's not rocket science. It's simple, it's easy, and it's
but it's keeping track.
Just available for you. Yep.
Yeah. So let's see. We just had a couple different final thoughts that I just wanted to make sure we discussed really quickly, and we'll take any more questions that we have. But there are manuals out there for you. You may or may not have it yet. It's called a D698, and it's the MQA manual for CRRs. And there is a new correction manual too. And what it really is it's just a new published document that says this section 2 on page 49, this is the new information. So there's really two now. They're both called a D698, but one just says the MQA manual and the other one says corrections on it. So if you need that, if you haven't received it, please talk to your ACO first, but we do have them electronically and we can get those out to you. I just emailed one to one of my CRR RAs today, so they are out there and we can get those to you. So talk to your ACO first and your partnership specialist if you need that. Again, you will, in a perfect world, you will have regular meetings with your partnership specialist and your RM. So please don't feel overwhelmed and worried about how this is going to look, because again, we are going to give you guidance. We're there every step of the way, and we'll make sure that you have all the supplies and tools you need to have a successful event. And again, we as partnership specialists will be trying to attend as many of those first events as possible when we get this kicked off and rolling. Mark, do you want to take the next couple of bullet points there?
Sure. So one thing we want to point out is over the years, the census has moved largely from paper to now we're largely digital, with almost half of the country accounted for, and most of that through the online self-response. The paper processing is not as readily accessible. We can't just go say, hey, there's a whole bunch more. We can't just have blank paper questionnaires hanging out around because they're identified individually. And so you may be asked, or people may be asked, well, I lost my questionnaire. Could you just give me one to fill out now? We can't. We don't actually have any to hand out. And that's where we want to point people back to the internet self-response or the telephone number. And they can take it live with someone over the phone, or they can have you help them with the internet version. Or have, take that information back home and have someone help them there if they're looking for that. But the availability of the paper questionnaire is not where we have the availability. It's available anytime online, but if you missed the questionnaire that came to your home, or let's say one didn't even show up, if you're very rural, we have several areas that they wouldn't receive paper questionnaire or wouldn't have yet. So that's where we want to push them to the other methods available to them. The next piece is we're the Census Bureau. We're a government agency, yes. However, we want to be careful with any type of, contrived political affiliations. We're apartisan. We're nonpartisan. And because of that, we want to maintain that image as well. So this is something we've managed within the partnership realm for a while now. Is we've got the League of Women Voters, great organization. They're a national partner with the U.S. Census Bureau, and then you have the local Democratic caucus and the local Republican caucus, or this county's Democrats and this county's Republicans, or the Libertarians, or whatever these political affiliations may be. And we want to make sure that we are not connected or seen as connected to any specific political party. And we do that by basically making the same offer to both organizations. If the local Democratic convention wants us to have an MQA there, then we would need to have one at the Republican one, or at least make sure that it is an offer to them to maintain that nonpartisan. We also don't connect ourselves to any current political candidates who are campaigning, because if they are the elected official today, that's great. If they are campaigning and they want us to be a part of their campaign, that we can't do that because of how that is seen, or how that people interpret that. Then we also try to stay away from controversial organizations and groups that have, like the National Federation of Marijuana Growers. Marijuana is illegal on the federal level. As federal employees, we cannot actually smoke marijuana or use marijuana. And because of the way that is still seen, it's a state-by-state type deal. We just avoid that one. If someone says, hey, we got this great opportunity right here, great storefront, just come hang out next to the local dispensary. Yeah, can't do that. Sorry. We appreciate, though, the interest that you'd provide, but we just have to stand apart from some of those controversial organizations. And then there's also the immigration topic. With immigration, it's a very in certain areas it is very sensitive when it comes to the Census Bureau. Well, first and foremost, there is no citizenship question on the census questionnaire. That was removed, and it is not on there. So that is one piece that people may ask about, and you can just reassure them that is, we don't have a citizenship question, but we have organizations or partners of ours that maybe have a crackdown with ICE, and while you're doing an MQA, ICE shows up. Well, in a scenario like that, which could happen, don't know necessarily how frequently or specific details on something like that, but in a scenario like that, we would just want to pack up shop and head out, because as the Census Bureau, we are not an enforcement agency. We just simply aren't. And if there's ever a time when we are in a MQA where there is enforcement taking place, especially from, say, ICE or something like that, you'd want to stand away from that. And I've actually worked in an organization where it wasn't ICE, it was the U.S. Marshals were conducting a sting operation at my manufacturing facility. I was one of the management team, and they gave us a heads up 5 minutes before. They said, hey, U.S. Marshals are here to serve a warrant to a couple individuals. And we just all looked at each other like, what? And you would hope that if there was an operation like that, you might have heads up, but there's no guarantee there would be. And so for us, we simply just help them from an organization serve that warrant by standing out of the way and minimizing the impact to our business. And a partner would probably be in the same scenario where they're just they don't want to be necessarily the enforcer. Well, we don't want to be anything with the enforcement on that as well. So you would pack up and excuse yourself and say, we might need to reschedule or whatever, but you would want to remove yourself from that situation, get your gear packed up and out of there as quickly as you can. I don't imagine that impacting a ton of partners, but it could. So these are things we want you to know they could happen, but be prepared. But for the most part, this is going to be an organization where you're going to be an operation where you're going to be out there helping people and facilitating things. So we second to last here, we've got dealing with the media. I've personally been approached by the media probably over 100 times for different quotes, and I'm writing a story. Or my favorite is when they're incognito. The media is not required to identify themselves. So sometimes someone that just comes up and is asking you questions could be with the media. And you get a feel really quickly if they have some specific thing they're looking for from you. And so maybe that'd be one of the pieces is someone starts asking questions like a normal the inquisitive participant, and then all of a sudden the questions start changing, and you're like, wait a second. Okay. Let me just ask you, are you with the local newspaper? Are you with the media? And in that scenario, if they say yes, you say, actually, I am not able to speak on behalf of the Census Bureau in this capacity, but I do have someone who you can reach out to. We have a media specialist for our area, and our region has several media specialists. I know in Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada have a media specialist that handles all of those requests. In California, they have one that handles all of, I think, Southern California, and one that handles Northern California and the rest of the states. And so we want to make sure that we can connect you to those media specialists. So you would ask your partnership specialist or your recruiting manager, your RM, who is our media specialist that I should refer media questions to? And that would be the best way to handle that. It gives them one point of contact, and that's the person who would be the voice that would be able to represent. So that is really how you want to address the media. And the who you call for help is always going to be your RM, partnership specialist, and if it's dealing with the media, a media specialist. Those are kind of like your portfolio of who you need to have on speed dial, just for access. And other than that, we have, you've got your, you're not alone in this. We have almost, I think they're looking to have, we have over 700 CRRs currently, and we're looking to have more than that by the time this operation really has a chance to get kicked off and really rolling in the communities. So one thing we just want to emphasize over and over and over, I can't emphasize this enough, is that your position is designed to help move the needle in communities that need support in getting the response to the census. And in that scenario, in that regard, we have a very clear focus as we want to get out there, boots on the ground, help respond to the census. And that we do need to, I don't think we had a slide specifically on this, but there's one piece, there's a question that's come in that is, what's the difference between what we do and the people that go and knock doors? And that would be referring to who we have enumerators, the people that are actually going to homes that have not yet responded. We don't have a response form, so we're going to follow up in person. And because of that, they have a very clear focus. They have a checklist of addresses that have not responded, and their goal, because we are the U.S. Census and this is required by the Constitution, they're going to verify with every home that has not responded, and they're going to go there. And what we are is we're the community approach. We don't target the individual homes and look for responses of people we know haven't responded. We take a leveraged side and say we are going to work with partners who have relationships within a community to extend the opportunity to those that they know and serve or host or house or help or whatever it is, and we're going to use that venue in a more open forum for people to respond. So if the barrier is, I'm just concerned about who is going to see my information, well, you can be a person that helps, say that really I'm a Title IX sworn employee of the United States Census Bureau, and because of that, your answer is safe with me. And we've had, a presentation already on Title 13 to go in through the ins and outs of it and the penalties and whatnot. But that's a very personal assurance. I personally assure people, I can guarantee your information is not coming from me. Your information is never leaving my mouth to be disclosed, because I have personally sworn to keep it protected. And, our technology is designed to encrypt it and take care of it. And that is a different focus. Within Mobile Questionnaire Assistance, we are mobilizing, going into the community to help get greater access. Our enumerators, who are non-response follow-up, they are triggered only by non-response. So if you don't respond to the census, someone will come to your house. That is how it works. And they have a very specific purpose and focus and goal in getting to every non-responded household. Ours is to make us more visible and available to respond within the community. And so there's actually a very clear line in how that is administered even. And so we are on the side of community engagement and activation efforts, and they are on the side of we are really going door to door to homes that have not responded. And so we serve our overall goal really is to do the same. We're all moving the needle. We're trying to get more responses in to get a complete and accurate count. Count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. But we have two different strategies and tactics. Is they have we're going to every home that hasn't responded, and we are looking for ways to help enable and make available to people where they are congregating or with partners that serve them and help them. So those are really the top of the list. Actually, I think we've actually run out of questions. I'm looking here in our queue, and we don't have any more questions. So, Mindy, anything else before we close this up? I think these wonderful CRRs are ready to move on to another topic.
I am sure they are. And wonderful summation at the end there, Mark. I did have one more thing that just came to my mind when you were talking about where we are set up at an MQA event and the political party piece of it or controversial organization. Sometimes we will be at an event where we have assigned tables. Let's say it's a nonprofit fair. I don't know. It could be a number of different things, but you get there and they say, okay, go look for your table number 4, and your name is on there. Keep in mind and just be mindful that let's say you have an assigned table, or let's say you're setting up next to other organizations or entities. If you just randomly do get put next to one of those controversial organizations or a political party, it doesn't hurt anything for you to go to the person that has put this event together and say, hey, do you think, it would be possible for me to swap tables with somebody or move yourself? We're trying to avoid maybe any pictures that get put in the media of, our Census Bureau table next to a specific political party or controversial organization, because the way the media goes, it could just be a snapshot and it would be taken out of context. We were just trying to avoid that. So if at all possible, you could try to move yourself if you get put next to, something marginal like that. That could be, just not a good place for us to be. And then the other thing, when Mark mentioned ICE, if there was any reason that ICE showed up to any event, and again, I don't think that this really could happen in a lot of places in our area, but you just never know, it could happen. If ICE did show up to an event, the instruction and guidance is to immediately shut down your table, shut it all down, and just leave the event. If there was ever any kind of immigration authorities coming in and to an event where you're at. So that would be the guidance and the only thing I wanted to add there. Mark, you have been an amazing partner for me in this. I thank you very much. I know these CRRs are going to have a great time. They are going to be so successful. And the thing is we are all going to have a lot of fun. We have a lot of amazing months in front of us. Let's make it the best we can. And please ask questions, reach out to your partnership specialists, your RMs when you have questions. And Mark, thank you again. CRRs, thank you for listening. And with that, I think we will wrap it up for the day.
Thank you for attending today's session. The recording will now stop.